Hi guys, welcome to Dev Superpowers. My name is Ben Cull, and I'm wearing the right t-shirt today because I'm going to introduce you to Stripe and the wonderful world of online payments. Now the goal of today is to get as much done as we would need to get into a SaaS application. So I'm going to try and cover taking single payments. I want to get to taking recurring billing payments, so signing customers up to like a plan. And I want to make sure that you can move customers between those plans. For example, if they wanted to upgrade or downgrade or any one of those kind of things. Now, for those of you who haven't seen a Dev Superpowers before, welcome. We're going to get stuck straight into coding. That's the idea. It's like sitting down next to me and working with me. And so with that said, let's get started. Okie doke. So the first thing we're going to do is boot up a Visual Studio 2015. And we're going to hit up new project. Now, I like to remind people in each of my videos, if you haven't done a new project in a while, go ahead and do it. It's a lot of fun. You learn a lot, especially while ASP.NET is changing so much. I'm going to throw it into my projects temp folder. We'll just call this one Online Payments 1. Why not? And I'm going to make an ASP.NET web application. It's going to be the new ASP.NET 5 preview templates because these are the good ones to go take a look at every now and then. And I'm going to hit OK. And while that's firing up that project, let's jump over to Stripe. Let's get acquainted with everything they've got in here. So you can head over to their main page. There's a bunch of stuff in here, but really what you want is the documentation. And we're going to be focusing on a few of these things on the left-hand side here. So we're looking for checkout. This is going to be the first thing we take a look at. So checkout is essentially a way of taking or adding a little payment widget to your website. But be careful, it doesn't actually take the payment. All it does is record the credit card data. And we'll take a look at the payment flow in just a second, but here's a quick demo of the checkout. It pops up, you can whack in any old email address. Use the test card number, which is 424242424242, any valid future date, and any old CCV. And we're gonna go ahead and hit pay 20 bucks. Boom, cool little animations, and away that goes. And so all that is done, it hasn't actually processed the credit card or anything like that, keeping in mind that it's just a test one, but it's gone and grabbed just a token. And with that token, you can then go and perform a credit card charge later on using the Stripe API. And so what we'll do is basically first, let's implement Stripe checkout just on our homepage, and we'll get a successful charge going. Okay, so let's jump into Visual Studio. You can read up a bit on what's new, but we won't delve into this. It's not that important what it looks like or how it works. You can check out some other Dev Superpowers videos for some ASP.NET 5 stuff. We're just going to focus on the payment stuff and use this as a vehicle for getting there. So I'm going to hit build. I'm going to load up a new page. And I'm going to throw in the checkout button. I think just at the top here in the build succeeded, taking a while to load. I'm going to throw it up in the Jumbotron that normally appears at the top of the page. And I guess while that's loading, let's check out how to actually go in and go do this stuff. So the checkout widget that we saw up here is really, really simple. It's just a bit of JavaScript that you reference, and then you throw on a form as well. So this one actually injects everything you need for you. And you can literally just copy and paste this, and we'll break down everything in here in a sec. Might just try that again. There we go, much better. Okay, so here's the traditional, loading screen. I'm going to replace this message here with a pay button, and we'll make a button and a message that lets you pay an amount. So first things first, let's go find that thing. So we can go to Home Index. Home Index, and here it is. Learn how to build ASP.NET, things that can run anywhere. And here's our link. So what I'm going to do is replace the link and just paste in this code that we saw here. Again, we're just on the stripe.com checkout page. Grab this code and paste it straight in here. And this is all you need. Actually, I could run this now and it would work. But let's break it down and see what's going to happen. So the first thing is you've got a form, and it's going to actually post to this spot. So let's go and change this to a URL action. And we'll just make it go to home index, hey? So index, oops, we've got an index on the home controller. Okay, so URL action, it's going to plug that in for us, and that's where it's going to submit the data to. So the script here, you can see it's going and loading out the checkout JavaScript. Data key. Now this key is going to be different for everyone. Once you've actually signed up to Stripe, you'll be able to see what your key is. And the great thing about the documentation is it plugs in a key for you if you're signed in. So that's my test key. We've got a bit of an image that's not going to load because we don't have that image locally. We might say it's, Ben's shop or something like that. And the thing that you're buying today, let's say it's one coffee. And the amount, let's call it $5. Now keep in mind with amounts, it's in cents. Or if you're using another currency that doesn't have dollars and cents, it's whatever the base unit of that currency is, or base indivisible unit. So for dollars, it's cents. You can't divide a cent. And so we've got 500 cents there, and we'll let the locale load up automatically. But let's just have a quick look at what this does. If we go and hit Control 5 again, there you go. It's gone and rendered a Pay with Card button for us. And if we click that thing, we get Ben's shop. Now keep in mind the images, we didn't plug an image in, but that doesn't matter. We've got one coffee, and then we can do everything as just described. But let's just fire up the F12 DevTools. And I'll just turn off screen emulation. There we go. Now let's just check out what it does when it reloads the page. Now if I put my email address in, and I put in a credit card number, 1215123. Watch what happens when we hit pay, and I'm going to switch over the network tab. I'm going to preserve log as well, so I'll clear for now. Show all things and preserve the log. So we hit pay $5, and the thing we're most interested in, and you can see here that it's gone and loaded back up our home page because we successfully told it to post to our home page. Now if we go and find that post, let's tell you what, let's look for this tokens bit here. So you can see what it does is it goes and sends all of the information we just typed into that particular Stripe widget. And there's the card number and all the bits and pieces and all the sensitive data in our key. But you'll notice that it sends it directly to Stripe's API from the browser. And this is really important because what that means is that our server never sees credit card data, which means we're never responsible for any PCI compliance or any other sort of compliance we need to stick to. But essentially you'll see that when it forwarded us back to localhost, or when it submitted the form, you can see that it's given us a token. You can tell it tells us what type of card they used, or rather that it was a card, and it gives us the email address they plugged in as well. And it's this token that allows us to go and create a new payment against the Stripe API. So keep in mind, even though the widget looked like we processed a payment, we haven't actually processed anything yet. So the next part of the flow, and again, you can go and check out the checkout documentation for all this sort of information and how you can customize it. But the next thing we need to do is we need to install the Stripe API into our project, and then we need to initiate a charge. So you can see a tutorial about that in the charging cards section here. And we won't go and look at this documentation for that because we've actually got a neat little SDK that we can grab from NuGet. So let's fire off a NuGet package. And if you just search for Stripe, I'll just show you what you can see actually. So you get Stripe, which isn't too bad, that one, but stripe.net is my favorite one. It's just down here. And if you just compare the downloads, let's have a look actually, I haven't looked at this in a while. 12,000 downloads there of the main Stripe one, and of stripe.net, we have 108,000 downloads. So you can see that it's a far more popular, it is a bit older, this particular one, but it's been very reliable. So we'll install stripe.net. But you know what, that doesn't preclude you from going and installing the other one. I encourage people to go check it out. Okay, package restore complete. So what this gets us is the ability to jump over to our home controller and process that particular payment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to here and I'm going to say string Stripe token. And again, this is just the parameter we saw back here. Here it is here, Stripe token is what we're expecting, that guy there. And what we'll do is we'll say if we get a Stripe token, So if null or empty, Stripe token, then what we're going to want to do is create a charge. So I'm going to say var charge request is equal to new Stripe charge, and you'll wait for your IntelliSense to come up here, but it's the Stripe charge create options. And it's a similar naming convention for many of these API or SDK sort of things here. So there's a few things that we need to put in, and probably the most important, and you wouldn't think this, is the amount. And you might say, hey, but hang on a sec, we put the amount into the widget. Shouldn't it know already? And the fact is that you can really put whatever you want into the API, but when making the actual charge, you need to put the correct amount in here. And that's because people can go and, if you ever have some bad JavaScript or, anything like that, people can change the values on the client side, and you need to reconfirm them back here. So always plug in the correct amount. You're probably going to want to put in your currency as well. Now I'm going to put AUD, but it supports pretty much every major currency. You've also got a bunch of other options here, but what we will do, I think, is just stick to the top few. So we don't need, you can put an application fee here in, which we'll go take a look at in a minute. But I think for the most part, that's all we need. And so the only other thing we need to do is set up a source, which is a new source options. And essentially what you've got in here is where the charge came from. And for us, we're going to use a token ID. And our token ID is equal to Stripe token. And that's looking pretty easy. And that's because that's all there really is to it. Next, we can set up the charge service itself. Stripe charge service. Here's where you go and plug in your API key. Now, this is probably a great time to tell you about the difference between the public API key and the private API key. Now, when you're logged into Stripe, and I'm just going to bring up another window here. Okay, a bit of two-factor authentication, which means I have to cut out me logging into the page then. But picking up where I left off, there's two keys when you're looking at Stripe stuff. So I'm going to go to the Ben Cull account. And I'm going to go up to settings, and I'm going to look at API keys. And there's two sets of keys. Now I'm going to go and refresh all these keys because I'm now publishing them. But essentially you've got a couple of test keys and a couple of live keys. And this is if you want to make test payments like we did before with the 424242 cards. And if you want to start using live things, you need to use the live keys. Now, in each of these environments, you've got a secret key and a publishable key. And the difference is publishable keys can be given to the client, the browser, and all those sorts of places, and they just identify you as an account. They don't actually have any sway. They can't charge anything. They can't do anything. All they do is identify you. Whereas the secret key is for server-to-server communication with Stripe. So once you've gone and grabbed the token from the browser, you use your secret key to go and make that charge. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab our secret key here. I'm going to jump into the back end, and I'm going to plug that into our Stripe charge service. And just while I'm here, just to confirm, I'm just going to make sure that this key matches my test publishable key, which I don't think it does. Must have been an example. Okay, so there we go. I've updated my publishable key out the front here. And then on the server side, I've got my secret key. And it's with that, you can go service.create, because we're using the charge service to create a charge, and we give it our charge request, and that's all we need. We'll grab the result from that guy, which will be a Stripe charge. And what we'll do is we'll say, hey, if the result dot paid is equal to true, then that means it was successful, and we'll go and set our view bag message to equal to yay, it worked. And if it was false, what we'll do is we'll say, hey, Did I put too many brackets in there? I think I did. If it's false, we'll set the viewBag.message to equal to the result.failure message. And it's just a nice friendly message from Stripe to explain what went wrong, so you can pass that straight through to the user. Okay, thanks ReSharper. I know I can update that, but it's nice and easy to read this way. So I'm going to go ahead and build that guy. Oh, cannot find Stripe. Here we go. Here's a really good tidbit for people following along. So you'll notice here that I'm getting some weird assembly errors. And you can see here straight away that DNX Core 5, that's a hot tip to let you know that the code I'm trying to use is not cross-platform compatible. And if you've taken a look at any of this new ASP.NET 5 stuff, by default, the projects always load in both dependencies, or rather both build targets, or whatever you call them. Essentially, you jump into project JSON, come down to your, here we go, frameworks. So you can see here that it's gone and it's targeting the .NET Framework 4.5.1. It's also targeting DNX Core, and we don't support DNX Core because that particular Stripe library does not support that. So I'm going to remove that from the frameworks inside of Project JSON, and you'll see miraculously that everything build succeeds. Especially while it's early days here with ASP.NET 5 and this cross-platform stuff, it's a good idea to go and remove that from your projects to start off with, because this was a nice simple build error. Sometimes you can get some really obscure ones. But now that that's working, let's go ahead and fire that up in the browser. Just going to go close our other one, and we'll come back here. Yes. If that's not empty, let's do that again, shall we? Refresh. It's live coding here, people, live coding. All right, so here we have the pay with card, and actually this just reminds me as well, we'll go and replace this with our viewBag.message. So we'll say, hey, viewBag.message, and we'll plot that there. Okay, there we go. Can't see anything other than this pay as card. So let's go and do that now. So I'm just going to plug my email address in again, because we're using our test keys. We can put in test cards and it will work. A cool feature of Stripe actually is this remember me stuff as well. It'll go and tie it to your phone number and let you check out quicker in future, but we won't look at that. But it's a cool little feature. Let's go ahead and hit pay $5. We get a tick. It's going to go refresh our page, and here you see, yay, it worked, which means that essentially what we've done is we've made a charge with our card. And I don't know about you, but that is dangerously easy to take payments. Very, very simple. If we load up our dashboard, I believe we should be able to get it to show us that payment we just made. There it is, $5. In test mode, you can go and flick that over to live when you'd like to do live transaction as well. But that's pretty much how we take single payments. The next thing we want to do is look at some more of the more powerful features in here. We might want to get people onto a plan, especially if we're going to build a SaaS app. So let's take a look at setting up a plan, a couple of plans, and then we'll start assigning customers to these plans, because the workflow is not difficult, but it's a little bit different. So what I'm going to assume here is that Ben's Coffee Shop has potentially a couple of monthly specials. Let's say there's a $5 a month special and then a $10 a month super special plan where you get lots of coffee or something like that. So I'm going to call this one, first one, Test 5. So Test 5 plan. You can pick from any of the currencies that are supported, but I'm going to go with AUD again because the transactions you make in the back end have to match this. Now for my Test 5 plan, it's $5. The interval is monthly, though you can choose from quite a wide range of different things. There's some cool support here for things like trials and updating your statement with different description. I'm happy with that. We won't get into these, but check out the documentation because you can build some really powerful sort of SaaS-like payment workflows with zero effort at all. You just plug in some data and it'll work. But for this particular one, we're just going to go with a $5 a month test plan for coffee. I'll say $5 coffee plan, actually. That might help users a bit more. And remembering the ID test 5, that's what's important. And just while we're here, I'm going to throw in another one called test 10. It's going to be the exact same thing, but for $10. And this is just so I can show you what it's like to upgrade to a different plan level. $10, create plan. Okay, beautiful. Hey guys, by the way, keep in mind that pretty much everything I'm doing within the interface here, you can also do through the API. So if you need to make dynamic plans, you can go and do that as well. And it's quite good. I've used the dynamic plan support before, and it really takes care of that pro-ratering and cancellations and refunds. A lot of things that you don't think about till the end of the day or when it actually comes up. And so yeah, very handy. But for this demonstration, $5 and $10 plan should do. And to make our index page a little nicer, let's go ahead and have a second plan sign up form. So what I'm going to do is, let's ditch most of this stuff. Get rid of some items. We can get rid of all that. And we've got our carousel and all those sorts of things, but I think just down below, let's just do some basic bootstrap and get ourselves a couple of divs going. So I'm going to go with 2 small 6-columned. If you're new to Bootstrap, you can check out my other Dev SuperPowers on getting up and running with that. It's super powerful for doing prototyping and even production-worthy stuff. And what I'm going to say is in here, I'm going to say coffee plan. So $5 coffee plan. And then my other one, I'm going to put in the $10 coffee plan. And here's going to be the cool thing. So essentially what we need to do is we need to get the user to sign up and give us their credit card details the first time they come to the site. And then every other time we can just simply update their user ID with the plan that they're on if we want to change it. So let's start from the beginning, and I'm going to go and grab this particular one. I'm going to put in 2 more of these. Now you'll notice I don't have to change much. I'm going to leave these all the same, except I'm going to change the descriptions so that they know what they're getting into. I'm just going to change the second one to $10 or 1,000 cents. The rest is going to be the same. And pretty much, because it still points at index home, we don't know which particular plan they're signing up to, and we need to go figure that out. So I'm going to add another parameter to our, our form action. I'm just going to say amount. Now, normally you do this in a bit more clever way. You'd use a proper post request or something like that, but we're going to do it this way for now. And so actually, it's not going to work, is it? Because it's a post. We need to get instead input type hidden, and we'll put amount name is equal to amount, value is equal to 10. There we go. Because it's a post request, you could use forms. And there you go. So I'm going to change that to 500. And now when posting to that particular endpoint, we'll be able to figure out which one's which. So what we should be able to do, theoretically, is just come up here and say int amount. And hopefully it should do the rest for us. And so we can take a look at our backend code. Now I'm just going to do a quick bit of debugging just to make sure that that is in fact the case. So let's go ahead and hit F5. Because I don't want to venture too far into this without doing the right thing. So here we go. We're going to go pay with card. I'm going to type in, not that one actually, we're going to go down here to the coffee plan. Bang, 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 bang. Hit pay. Yep, beautiful. We get our amounts and we get our tokens. F5, that'll pump through a transaction, and yay, it worked. Okay, so it doesn't matter which one of these you use, as long as you put in the right backend stuff. So let's take a look at what we would want to do if we wanted to charge people, more than once. Because one of the key things about these tokens that you're getting back from the server, these ones here, are that they're only available to be used once. As soon as they're used, they're gone. You can't charge them again. So what you need to do is, instead of setting up a new charge, you need to set up a new customer. And if you keep that customer ID, you can go and charge that customer as many times as you like. So let's go and do that. Instead of charge request, we're going to go customer request. It's equal to new Stripe customer create options. Right, and inside this one here, we're going to pretty much put the same stuff, except this time we only need source is equal to new Stripe source options. We're going to put in that token ID. It's equal to our Stripe token. So far so good, nothing new here. And then what we're also going to put in is, let's take a look here, we've got account balance, coupons, no, don't need that. We put in a description if we want to identify them. We do want to keep their email, but actually, yeah, let's take that. Let's grab their email. Of course, it should be as simple as grabbing it like that. I believe that's what it was. If that's different, we'll go check that in a second. Stripe email. Metadata, no, we don't need that. Plan ID. Now this is the important one. So this is what is different between the test 5 and the test 10. So what we might do is put them as hidden fields as well, just for sake of convenience. Again, normally you'd keep track of this sort of thing on the server side. So let's go plan ID, test 5, and we'll go test 10. Right, plan ID. So anything else here? Tax percent, no, and trial end. Again, this is for those cool trial sort of stuff you can do. But we won't do any of that. We will just make our customer like that. So there we go. We've got the source, which essentially is that credit card data. We've got their email and we've got their plan ID. So from here, this is what gets interesting, is what we can do when we create a new customer is we still want to charge them that $5 to make sure that, they've got the money before we start. So we still have our $5, we still have our currency. And instead what we'll do is, instead of a token for our source, we'll come down here. You should be able to find out that it is the customer ID instead. Let's go get rid of that guy, and there it is. Don't need a source at all. So you need a customer ID when creating a charge. And this one you can charge over and over and over. But if you've noticed, we don't have one of these yet. We need to set up a customer service, which is equal to new Stripe customer service. Again, plugging in our API key, which I'm just being lazy here and copying it over, but that's okay. We're just here to demonstrate. Okay, customer service.create. And again, you can do all the other things like get and delete and all that sort of stuff. But we're interested in creating a customer using that customer request we just made. And I'm going to put new customer is equal to our customer service thing here. And what this will let me do, you could put a check. So I would check new customer here to make sure it worked. But what we're going to do instead is just charge that customer straight away. So I'm going to go new customer dot, and we're going to find their customer ID. Default source ID, or there it is, ID. I'm just going to jump through these other ones just to see what else they've got in here. Yep, definitely ID. Okay, so we have set up a new customer request, executed that new customer request. We set up a new charge request here, and we're passing in that customer ID. Keep in mind, we can do this as many times as we liked. There's no limits there. We basically, from here down, have not changed the code at all, apart from setting up where the source of the charge is coming from. So what we'll be able to do now is essentially run this code. We should be able to get yay, it worked. And what I might do is just put in the customer ID as well. And if you haven't seen the C#6 string interpolation, then this should blow your mind. We're going to go new customer dot ID. Bang, straight in that string. One of the handiest upgrades that came with the latest round of the frameworks in the language. Okay, we're going to hit build, and let's go try that out. Let's just see how it works. So I'm going to control F5, close down the old one, and we will do the $5 coffee plan again. So this time I'm going to put in test123 at test.com. Put in the default test card with some valid details. I'm going to say pay $5. Here we go, page reloading, fingers crossed. Beautiful, yay, it worked. And look at this, we get a customer ID off the back as well. So let's go and just jump into Stripe and take a bit of a closer look at what's happened here. So if we go into the dashboard, I mean, we've processed a few payments now, yeah, so we should be up there. 4 successful charges, 1 customer created, which is pretty much what we want to go look at. So, it says we haven't got any customers. I think perhaps it has not reloaded itself yet. Let's try reloading the page. That's better. Okay, so there's our test123 at test.copham. Didn't realize I did that. There's that ID that we just had before. In fact, it should be the exact same one. You can come in here and see where they did it and what payment they made. The next thing I want to do, and it might be a bit tricky with this particular customer because we've gone and charged him a bunch of stuff already, but what I want to do is show you what happens when you upgrade from one plan to the next. So if we were to swap him from the $5 coffee plan to the $10 coffee plan halfway through the month, what is going to happen in terms of money? And essentially what's going to happen is they will be moved to the new plan and their next invoice. So when the monthly invoices would normally be generated 1 month from when they first started up, that particular next invoice is going to have a prorated version of this invoice. So if they used half the month, they'll only be charged $2.50 for their $5 subscription. And then they'll also be invoiced the other half of what they've already used. So for the the last 2 weeks, which is $10, they'll be charged $5, which is half of that $10. So you'll expect to see $7.50. But what you'll also see is the charge for the next month after that, which will be $10 because they're on that new plan. So you should see $17.50 essentially. But let's go and do that programmatically because it's no fun to do it here in the interface. We want to do it through code. That's what we're all here for. So instead of index, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to about. I'm just going to hijack this page and I'm going to ask for the customer ID. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to update the particular customer to the test 10 plan. Okie doke. So the updating a plan so when you want to update a customer's plan to something new, it's a little bit different. You might think to go for the customer options or to try and update the customer object, but there's actually another entity called a subscription that has been created for this particular customer. And so what you're going to do is you're going to go grab that subscription and update it. So the first thing we're going to do is load up the subscription service. Subscription service, and that's equal to a new Stripe subscription service. And again, you're going to put in your API key, which again, just going to go cheat and plug that in there. And now that you've got that subscription service, you can use it to go and grab subscription service. You can use it to go and grab a list of subscriptions. And what we're going to do is go subscription service.list, pass in the customer ID and any list options you want to add there, which we don't want to. We just want to get a list of subscriptions for that particular customer. So we'll go subscriptions is equal to that. And that's going to fire off and grab any of those subscription entities for us. And so with that knowledge, we can go, hey, if the subscriptions count, because in this case it's a list. So if the count of that isn't 1, essentially, then something wrong has happened, and we want to go and just return. We'll probably just redirect to index or something like that. But oops, my bad, forgot to put in that. And if we do have a subscription though, and there should only be 1, what we can do is we can update it. So what we will do is call the subscription service. Where'd it go? Subscription service. It's up with my IntelliSense today. And what we're going to do is update. And this guy needs a customer ID and then a subscription service update options. And this is how you go and figure out what it is you need. So we also need the subscription ID. So I'll grab subscriptions.first and .id. And the update options, which let's just do this in line, shall we? And essentially all we're doing is we're updating the plan ID to the new one. I'm just going to hard code test 10 in here. And what this is going to do is it is going to update, returns a Stripe subscription. So we'll just say updated sub is equal to that. And in here, I'm just going to type in viewback.message is equal to sub dot, and we might just put in the plan ID just to see what came back. Stripe plan ID will do us, just to prove that the correct data has come back from the server, and then we can return view. Now, because we're in the about page, I'm just going to go ahead and double check that it was going to render that. Okay, yes, it'll render it underneath the title, which should just be about. So let's have a quick recap of that. We go and fetch the services, the subscriptions for that particular customer. We identify the subscription we want to alter. In this case, I'm just going to take the first one, and we change its plan ID to whatever plan ID we would like to change it to. So using the customer object, or rather the customer ID I grabbed from this particular one last time, I'm going to go ahead and head over to Home About, and I'm going to plug in the customer ID of that. And let's just see what happens. Beautiful. Okay, so you can see here that it's rendered test 10 for us, which means it's gone and it's changed the customer to use the test 10 plan now. Now, let's go take a look at the damage from what's happened here. So if we take a look at our customer, just refreshing that same one. All right, coming down here, you can see the pending invoice items and all of these changes here. We'll start at the event log just to show you what's happened. So our user was charged $5 before. That was what we did earlier. A proration, or proration, how would you say that? Basically an adjustment has been made for -$5 because they haven't used $5 worth of their $5 plan because we're still on the first day of the month. And another adjustment in here for $10 was created because, again, we changed them from $5 to $10, so it's gone and added $10 for the use of this month. And you can see here a little note to say upgraded to the $10 coffee plan from the $5 coffee plan. And if you go in and check their invoices, you can go see their next one. So you can see again that it's that 15 because of the way it handles prorating, whatever it is. And we can go see what invoices they've paid and what's coming up. You'll notice that there's pending invoice items. You can actually just append various things to this user. So if in future they have, you have a micropayment system, or you've got other added extras that happen on top of their $10 a month plan, like an expansion pack or something like that, you can go and plug that in as an invoice item, and it'll just charge the correct amount at the end of the month. But that's pretty much everything you need to get started writing a SaaS app. Just to recap, we've gone in on the homepage, showed a few ways of just making one-off payments, or making one-off payments and adding them to a customer record at the same time, so you can go and charge them whenever you need to in future. And also setting up that recurring billing so that Stripe can just go and charge them for you. And we've also gone and taken a quick look at updating that customer record to move them between plans. And you'll notice that Stripe does most of the heavy lifting here with all the things you probably just wouldn't think about normally when implementing a payment system from scratch. Including, and you should really go have a look at this stuff as well. You can see really cool things like coupons. You should go and check out refunds, because I mean, from in here you can click refund on anything, but you need your website to be able to react to that, or maybe even enact the refund for you. If you're interested in learning more about Stripe and all this sort of thing, I would suggest also going and looking at the webhooks functionality, which lets you react to the changes. So if one of your customers or yourself come in here and make a refund here, rather than processing the refund yourself through your application, you can just react to the fact it happened and maybe update your system to suit. All right, and that's pretty much where I'll leave it today. There's such an amazing world of online payments out there. There's so much to learn, but as you've seen, it's really not that difficult. Just hit up the documentation page, read through a bunch of the things. There's great documentation in there, excellent API references. In fact, for anyone looking to design an API, I would look at Stripe's API as a good example of what to do, not only in terms of API design, but in terms of the documentation and tutorials and guidance and all that kind of thing. But until next time, if you'd like to check out even more great tech tutorials and content, go over to SSW TV, which is at tv.ssw.com. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you all in the next Dev Superpowers video. I'll catch you next time. Cheers.